up, guys? This is probably going to be the last video I bring to you regarding Little Cup. I did try for quite a while to get a non-bronzer team, but none of the teams I felt like were giving me the amount of success that I felt comfortable passing off onto you. And since it's just Little Cup, I didn't want to spend too much Stardust. I only have about 200,000 left for both Kanto and Catch Cup, which are probably going to be Stardust Hogs as well. So instead, I'm bringing to you a team featuring Tackle Bronzor. Didn't you ever hope that there was, or wish there was a Pokemon that could be Bronzor, Deino, and Cottonee? Well, now there is. Tackle Bronzor is probably the best counter to regular Bronzor. And I know a lot of you have hated running to Bronzors recently. This punishes Bronzor users as it not only keeps the games very long, but also stops the Bronzors right in their tracks. I guess before we get started, once again, a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. I'll leave the link in the video description, and here is how Tackle Bronzor works. So we're going to see the difference between Tackle Bronzor and regular Bronzor as well. Seel is still my safe switch, but I'm now using Drifloon as my closer, and Drifloon does need shields down. So I will fast forward through a lot of the longer Bronzor mirrors in the future, but I did want to explain how this Bronzor mirror should be played, because it'll probably be, despite how boring it is, it'll probably be the most common thing that you run into. For the mirror, you don't really need to even spend that much energy. Just throw out energy as soon as you get maxed, and you can see they're going to come in with Deino. Traditionally a pretty good counter to Bronzor. In this case, I swap out just because they swapped as well. You'll see that I stay into Deino leads in the future. Because both the Pokemon on the back are also not great against Dark types. So I have 3 Pokemon that aren't very good against Dark types on this team. So that makes some of these games a bit challenging. But Tackle Bronzor handles the Dark types way better than regular Bronzor and has much worse matchups versus almost everything else. So you see this game is long enough that they're able to bring back in their Bronzor. And I'm kind of just waiting for my switch timer to be up so I can swap back into Bronzor and absorb this energy. But instead, my Seel will go down. And what I'm trying to do is just counter this matchup with as much energy as I can. The reason Tackle Bronzor is better than Confusion Bronzor in the head-to-head is because Tackle's a one-turn move, and you're just dealing that chip damage every turn, whereas you're taking almost no damage from Confusion. And I decided to swap out to get a little bit of energy off on my Drifloon, because I know that's my win condition. I just need to get a little bit of energy and get some charge moves up before my opponents can get their charge moves off. So I know the Snorunt needs to enter the next matchup with my Bronzor with enough energy for a Shadow Ball, I think. So I can just charge up to a Shadow Ball safely. There, I know if they throw energy at my Drifloon, I'm fine as well. So we're going to see a Bronzor versus Bronzor mirror here again. And I fast forward through this one. So what you're going to see happen is this guy stays in. You absolutely don't want to stay in versus Tackle Bronzor with a Confusion Bronzor, because look at my energy. So I'm like keeping up with this guy without spending any energy. And I'm going to exit this matchup with essentially, so shield advantage there. So I got 2 shields off of his Bronzor, and I still won. The most common option is they don't shield their Bronzor, and what happens is they end up... I end up with 100 energy coming out of that matchup and just a little bit of health and blowing no shields. So either way, you get 100 energy advantage or you get a 2 shield advantage, and either one of those is absolutely lethal. This guy's running the BBML, Bronzor, Deino, Cottonee, and that's exactly what this team is designed to take care of. Bronzor, very good against all 3 of those Pokemon. And Seel and Drifloon hold their own as well. Icy Wind threatens Deino. So Alolan Sandshrew, this is probably the worst lead, just because the only Pokemon I can really go into is Seel, and it's not even very good. So after I do go into Seel, well, it's pretty good, but they can just take out my Seel with whatever they switch in, and then I'm in really tough shape versus this Alolan Sandshrew. I kind of do need shields down to try and beat it at all, but Seel versus Seel isn't that type of matchup. If they swapped in a Cottonee or a Deino, for example, I perhaps could have managed to take down some shields, but somehow I'm able to exit that matchup with a little bit of energy. I tried to clear the debuffs with Icy Wind, and they're going to bring in Poochyena. So Poochyena is going to really hurt unless they're baiting, and they're not. They go straight for the Crunch instead of the Poison Fang, and I'm just going to try and rip some shields off of them. I know Psyshock doesn't do very much, but I know most people don't realize how slowly Tackle Bronzor charges. They probably think that I have way more energy. So I go to Drifloon. Drifloon versus Poochyena, not ideal, but I need to save my Seel's energy for this Alolan Sandshrew, and I know that's my win condition. So yeah, I swapped to catch this. I don't know how smart this was, but they swap right into Alolan Sandshrew, and I am able to get to 2 Shadow Balls before they can feint me. So now it's just going to be a race to the finish versus this Poochyena, and I'm going to be able to barely win that game. So very tough lead from Alolan Sandshrew. I didn't get to use that Aqua Tail. If I did have that, I thought I had it charged up. I didn't get to use that against the Poochyena. I had to make the sack swap instead. But either way, I had to make one of those 2 big plays, and it worked out. So Cottonee lead, they usually swap right away. It's funny if they swap into Bronzor because you absolutely dominate them. Let's say they swap into Seel. This Pokemon does much better versus Tackle Bronzor than Confusion Bronzor, so I'm going to match with my own Seel. My team is not very good against Seel, which is another pretty common Pokemon. But here's how I like to play the Seel Mirror. Seel Mirror matchup. I throw the Aqua Tail the second time. Unfortunately, I swapped a little bit too slow, so I don't get the Aqua Tail before their Icy Wind. You'll see I improve this over time as I learn how to play the Seel versus Seel matchup a little bit better. But right now I'm going to just get to that other Aqua Tail, and they're going to have to make the decision. Do they want a shield, or do they want to have switch advantage so I get a shield? This team plays a lot better with shields down because Drifloon hits very, very hard. That's kind of your win condition in a lot of these games, is to get the shields down. They swap Cottonee to Bronzor, which makes me think that they have something really weak to Bronzor in the back. So I swap into Drifloon. Icy Wind will one-shot, or not one-shot, but deal like 75% of the health, so I do shield here. Seed Bomb doesn't do very much damage, but it might be enough to take out Drifloon, and I really need to get this Icy Wind off. That's my win condition, and I still can't take Cottonee down, but Bronzor will be able to come back in. And we're going to see an Alolan Meowth come in. I'm not really sure what moves Alolan Meowth normally runs, but I know at this point it's going to be really tough. They need to not be able to get off 2 charge moves here, or it's game over. And luckily they cannot. Tackle Bronzor barely closes that one out with its superior neutral damage to Alolan Meowth. I think that's one of those games we lose if we were running a Confusion Bronzor instead. We're going to see a Deino lead. This is very common, so it's important that you kind of know how to play against this. I'm just going to shield everything. They never bait versus Bronzor. They're always trying to get the crunch off because they don't expect you to shield. And now we're going to see Bronzor versus Bronzor. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. I don't know why they did this. Like, look how fast I've already caught up to the damage on them. I'm not going to be able to beat them because I was at quite a health disadvantage at the beginning. But this is what happens. So, very healthy Bronzor versus, or Confusion Bronzor versus like a pretty damaged Tackle Bronzor ends up very evenly, and they make a really good swap here. Honestly, this is a game-saving swap onto their Seel, and at this point, there's not too much I can do. There's 2 shields up, so Drifloon is quite useless. So this situation is definitely very tough. They bait me, so everything going right for them at this point, and this game is starting to look a little bit unwinnable. Yeah, we'll just let it play out, but I needed to get to that Icy Wind and Beta Shield to even have a chance, and now my Seel is lower health than theirs, and they have an extra shield, so no point in winning or staying in there. I think Little Cup has taught a lot of people about force quitting the game, just because these Bronzor mirrors have gone a little bit out of control. I decided to keep this video a bit shorter too, and not all these first 2 sets were in a row, but then I encountered like a day of pretty bad lag for myself and for opponents. There were a couple games where I'm just beating up people who've disconnected, which really sucks, and a couple games where I have like pretty much disconnecting level lag or not being able to use fast moves half the time, stuff like that. So this last set is just another example set. It wasn't in a row. These first 2 are in a row, so it just shows the relative power of this team. I feel like it gives you a chance in every game, just like the last Little Cup team. Bronzor is just that strong. So another Deino lead. I'm going to throw the Psyshock here. I normally don't do this anymore. I just go for the Heavy Slam, but I do get the bait. Most people don't know the counts for tackle Bronzor, like I mentioned earlier, so they'll just shield whatever on Deino. And then they only get to 2 crunches. If they get to another move, this is the only Deino I think that did, it's just a Body Slam. So don't worry too much about that. They're going to come in with their regular Vulpix, and I decide to swap. In hindsight, I really should not have swapped because my best, or swapped to Drifloon instead, because my best counter to Alolan Vulpix is this Seel, and he is at risk of being taken out by this Shelmet before he can get the appropriate matchup. So Shelmet's going Body Slams instead of Bug Buzzes, though, which makes me think it's just a one-move Shelmet. And I'm just trying to get out of there as fast as possible to not have to tank as much damage on my Seel as possible. And I'm able to, so he is running Bug Buzz. So I'm able to catch that Bug Buzz on Drifloon, and they're going to swap into Vulpix. And I realize my win condition is just to Shadow Ball them down. Shields are already down. They blew on Shelmet. So another pretty easy win there. And you notice that was a Deino lead. That's not traditionally a very good lead for Bronzor, but this is something that you can really just take advantage of. So we're going to see Cottonee swap right into Seel. This seems like a pretty common swap nowadays. Seel really kind of taking over a little bit. I don't like to throw right away with Icy Wind if I swap in right away. Just because they can swap out as well. In this case, they're locked in, so I'm going to go straight for that Aqua Tail, but once again, I swap a little bit slow. You'll see, hopefully, that I get some games where I have improved at this. Because getting the Aqua Tail through before the second Icy Wind is kind of a big deal. And I'm going to get to another. So very similar to the last situation, they either have to shield or lose switch, and they decide to lose switch, which is fair. I think both are about equal. But now I'm in the situation where I have a Bronzor and a Drifloon against a Deino. And I'm going to bring in my Bronzor, and they're probably very confused about this. But the Bronzor Deino matchup also strips shields on both sides, which is good for the Drifloon. Especially Drifloon versus Cottonee. So they actually don't shield that, which is extremely concerning for me. This is, I think, the game where I stopped baiting and just started going straight Heavy Slam instead. But I think I go for Psyshock here just because I do think that they'll shield anything at this point. And I swap to Drifloon because I want to get these Icy Winds rolling as soon as possible. I probably should have done it earlier. And I'm able to get another Icy Wind off. So that Psyshock was able to remove a shield, which allows me to get this game into a position where Bronzor can finish this off. Yeah. Drifloon, I think my main issue with playing it at the beginning was that I kept playing it like it was a Drift Blim. It has the same moveset, right? It's the pre-evolution. But it is really, really squishy. It honestly plays more like a Gengar or a Haunter. You hit really, really hard. So shields do need to be down, whereas Drifblim is much finer with shields up. You just spam Icy Winds. So Seel versus Seel. This time I swapped in. And I get CMP tied to the Icy Wind. And if they swap here, I'm in some trouble. But they're going to stay in, so it's not too bad. And I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail, so I'm not debuffed. I know they're going to beat me to the next Icy Wind. And then they swap now. So this is interesting. I'm going to be pretty mean here and throw the Icy Wind at this Bronzor, who's already going to do almost no damage to my Bronzor. And I'm going to swap in there and just let the slap fight commence. I want to stay at as full energy as possible because I know they're probably going to try and switch at some point, and I want to be able to hit whatever they switch into with multiple Heavy Slams or Psyshocks. Because Bronzor does hurt a decent amount with his charge moves. So you can see how much damage this is doing, and yeah, they swap into Drifblim right away. We're going to go for some Psyshocks here. Let's deal some damage. Drifblim, very squishy. Can't afford to take too many of these. And I've taken a couple hexes already, but I'm going to swap into my Drifloon, because I have shield advantage, and I can probably actually hex this Drifloon down. I'm going to go for the Icy Winds just to force some shields back, or save some shields, regardless of what they choose, and I'm going to shield again. I know I'm going to have a lot of energy on Drifloon. against the shields down, whatever, and it's going to deal a ton of damage. I really should have went for the Icy Wind right off the bat, but the Seel is going to be able to feint my Seel, and I'm going to go in with my Seel for absolutely no reason. So that was a risky play, but come with my Bronzor, and now we have a Bronzor versus Bronzor mirror match again. But in this case, my Bronzor has the distinct advantage of having more HP and being a tackle Bronzor. So you're going to see that this game, I think it does end up being pretty close just because of how fast Confusion Bronzor can charge up. But yeah, actually right down to the wire. So they're going to get a final Heavy Slam off here, but Heavy Slam does not do that much damage, and Tackle will tickle him down. In the end there, pretty close matchup. This is about as exciting as Bronzor versus Bronzor gets. But yeah, it does speed up the Bronzor mirrors. They're no longer 3-minute fights. They're like a minute and a half, which is still way too long. But it does drastically increase the speed of your games. And I think I only really had one game timeout. So we're going to see Seel versus Seel again. This happens a lot, so it's very important to know how to play this matchup. I'm going to go for this Aqua Tail now. I haven't seen anyone else do this, so I don't know why nobody's doing this. Maybe they're just running Icy Wind Seals only. But I'm going to get Icy Winded here, and now I'm in a pretty good position to win back this switch advantage there. They pop in with Deino, and once again, Deino versus Bronzor Drifloon. I have to go back in with the Bronzor, but it's fine. I just have to shield the crunches. And I'm going to throw Heavy Slam because I got burned that one time of them not shielding the Psyshock, but I think every other time they've shielded the Heavy Slam. So, I mean, it is what it is. So 2 shields down. I'm going to be able to take out this Deino. They don't really have too much health on their Seel in the back. And what they have is another Bronzor instead. So I stay in way too long with this Bronzor, but luckily he throws his energy. So I'm waiting for him to throw his energy so I can swap to Drifloon, I think. Yeah, so I swap there. And I have to farm down this Seel, or else I will not be able to win this game. I throw 1 Hex, because it's a 3-turn fast move, and then a Shadow Ball versus this Bronzor, and I'm not going to quite get this done. One little fast move away from winning this, and I'm not that mean of a person. I will quit out of this Bronzor versus Bronzor mirror match because I have no chance anyways. So Wynaut versus Bronzor. I'm going to swap out right away just because my Pokemon in the back are very good versus Wynaut. Seel is very good. I Icy Wind to try and force the swap. They actually blow their energy on Mirror Coat anyways. But I'm just trying to get them to swap out of there so that my Drifloon can farm them down later. It's almost like a guaranteed win if you can lock in Drifloon versus Wynaut. But they don't like to swap here, and I'm just going to be able to continue to not shield and farm down. So they do finally swap, and I could actually swap here as well to match, but my Seel is so low. Oh, I do it anyways. So yeah, that'll be good for you clearing Icy Wind debuffs in the future, or sack swapping or something like that. But I have now locked in my Bronzor with their Bronzor. I did not speed this part up. I guess I missed this particular Bronzor versus Bronzor mirror. But you can just see how much more damage you just do with your fast moves, and you just chip down the opposing Bronzor. You can see I charge up all the way to 100 energy, and I keep charging up so that when something else comes in, like this Vulpix it looks like, I can deal a ton of damage or burn some shields. And then I still have the very favorable matchup in the back. They're going to shield an Icy Wind. All I needed was the Icy Wind damage, so I'm going to get to a second Icy Wind. And it's going to be very close, but my Bronzor has a great advantage versus theirs in the back. I'm going to bring out my Seel to try and catch a charge move. So this is why I swapped out that Seel earlier. Ends up coming back and honestly saving a shield and potentially the game, depending on what they still have remaining. Got to get rid of that Wynaut, and then now I have a shield versus their Bronzor. They are just going to leave and save everyone some time. Thank you very much for leaving, especially in Little Cup. It's appreciated a lot more. So that's another 4-1 set here. Probably another one that could have been a 5-0, but just one fast move away. So the team is really giving me all the things I need to win. Sometimes you just make mistakes, and that'll happen. So going into this last set here, this was a little bit. I think I had to take out 2 sets, but they were both 3-2 sets. Like this team has been consistently winning sets. It's just been a bit of long games, and once again, we're going to see a Seel stay in here. You notice I'm not spamming my Icy Wind, even though I could throw it at the same time. I know my Seel loses CMP to every other Seel. So I just make sure they're going to stay in, and then I'm going to throw this Icy Wind. Because the last thing I want them to do is swap out and just clear the debuff. That's what I see a lot of people throw an Icy Wind and then switch. That doesn't make any sense because they'll just swap out too. So I throw the Aqua Tail again. And they actually Aqua Tail me, so this is the first other person that I've seen do this, and I just need to get to my own Aqua Tail. And we'll see if they shield. They don't. So I will be able to win back switch. And very common occurrence, we have the Deino come back in. And now it's Bronzor versus Bronzor, Slapfest. I swap a little bit late for this, unfortunately. I either should have swapped right away or waited for him to throw his energy, but instead I realized that it's a Tackle Bronzor, so Tackle Bronzor cannot really threaten Drifloon except for charge moves. That's why I swapped it a bit late. I think this is one of the first Tackle Bronzors I've seen. And I charged a little bit past max by accident. That was an overtap. And they're going to go into their Deino with no shields. Very luckily for me, I'm able to get this Icy Wind off. And now Bronzor versus Bronzor and Drifloon, it's not a winning proposition. So yeah, Drifloon is one of the things that does a lot better versus Tackle Bronzor. I've seen a couple more over the more recent days. I've been running this team for a couple days now, but it was really only today where I've started seeing more Tackle Bronzors. So people have started maybe catching on to the trend a little bit. Alolan Sandshrew lead. This is absolutely awful. I swapped really slow into Drifloon this time because I realized I need my Seel to deal with this Alolan Sandshrew. I'm going to end up blowing both shields right off the bat. This is not looking very good. I'm going to Icy Wind because I think I can get the shield off of this guy. And they're going to go into Seel, in which case I can, I'm going to Shadow Ball. I don't think they think I'm at a Shadow Ball yet, or they realize how much damage it does. That absolutely shreds the Seel. I can bring in Tackle Bronzor to tank whatever move they're going to throw here. It's just going to be an Aqua Tail and get a little bit more energy. But I know they're going to come in with the Alolan Sandshrew, and I'm going to come in with Seel. They actually stay in, and I think we're trying to get to a charge move, but could not quite get to it. And it's absolute music to my ears when I see a Confusion Bronzor come in. And I'm just going to Icy Wind debuff him as much as I can just to guarantee this win. With Tackle Bronzor in the back, I'm really not sure why this guy has not left yet. He knows that I have a Tackle Bronzor there. So yeah, he finally realizes it and saves everyone some time. This would have been like a 2 extra minute match or something like that. Just from the virtue of staying in. So this next match here, we're going to see a Bronzor versus Seel match. I swap out right away, by the way. I haven't mentioned this before in the video. I swap out right away just so they can't see that my Bronzor is Tackle or Confusion. They still have to like kind of wonder what it is. A lot of people save their Dinos for later because they're thinking, oh, we don't want to, or we want to save our Deino for this Bronzor. But if the Bronzor is a Tackle, Bronzor has a much better time. So that's why I don't attack at all versus these Seel mirrors. And maybe why these Seels have been staying in, because their Deino, they don't want to bring their Deino out into Seel because they want to keep it for the Bronzor later. So same Seel play. This one, I actually don't get to the next Aqua Tail, which is super weird. You've seen in the past I have, so this this Seel must have really good IVs. But I'm able to get that little bit of extra energy on my Drifloon to try and tackle whatever is coming in. And I'm going to swap out right away, and they're going to come in with Barboach. So Barboach, this would be a much better matchup for regular Bronzor. Regular Bronzor absolutely stomps Barboach. And not absolutely stomps, but like it beats it, and it has like a typing disadvantage just because Confusion is that powerful. In this case, the best I'm going to be able to do is burn some shields. And I think I'm going to let my Bronzor go down. And they're going to have to throw more energy. So, like, even Tackle Bronzor, who's not as good as Confusion Bronzor, still does this much damage to Barboach. And I'm going to be able to get a decent amount of energy here. I really should have thrown an Icy Wind first in hindsight because I need a Shadow Ball and an Icy Wind to KO. But they do let through the first move, so this allows me to go for 2 Icy Winds. But I can't quite get to it. One move away. If they actually threw their charge move there instead, I would have won. So well played to my opponent, realizing that they did need to fast move, farm me down, and I'm not able to win that game. That was a very tough game to win. So we have a Deino lead. So once again, I will stay in and 2 shield this Bronzor. So first one's going to be Crunch as usual, and if the first one's a Crunch, the second one is always a Crunch. They'll never bait on the second Body Slam. It just doesn't make sense for them. So I'm going to throw the Heavy Slam, get a shield back, and this is kind of like akin to those Shadow Victory Bell leads where you need to spend 2 shields to get 1 shield back, but you win that match with a decent amount of HP and energy. So they're going to come with Seel. I'm going to swap right away. And they decide to stay in for now. We'll see if that changes or not. But I had already gone for Aqua Tail and CMP Tide because I want to get my Aqua Tail damage out before the Icy Wind debuff. So Bronzor is going to come back in. I'm going to slap it with an Icy Wind, be able to just tank these charge moves a little bit, and it doesn't really matter if this Bronzor ends with a little bit of energy. I'll just bring in my own Bronzor. What I want to do is get quite a bit of energy and force their Bronzor to throw on my Bronzor so I can swap into Drifloon and try and farm down. So my Bronzor is quite low now, but I'm going to swap. I know I'm going to have to tank a charge move here. Drifloon can do that. Drifloon can tank 1. But after that, it's pretty dicey. So I'm going to be a couple hits away here. Oh, yeah, and I don't swap fast enough to, or use a charge move fast enough to beat that Seel. So that would have been a tough game regardless, but this guy knew exactly what he had to do to win it. So I managed to lose that Deino lead. Vulpix lead, this is very tough, but I swap right away to Drifloon because I know I want Seel to take care of Vulpix later. So I Shadow Ball. Because they swap into their own Seel. Seel's barely shield. I'm not going to shield at all either. Just because I want to save shields for other Pokemon. It's not a winning play to shield your Drifloon versus a Seel because Lick does so much damage. So Vulpix comes into Seel, which is a bit of a mind blow for me. That means whatever they have in the back must be absolutely awful. So I'm going to shield my Seel. And yeah, it's an Incada, so I do want my Seel to be the MVP here. I'm going to blow every shield I can on it. I know it's just a Night Slash, and I was trying to catch the Night Slash, I think, on Bronzor, but I switched a bit too late, or tried to switch a bit too late, so at this point I'm going to stay in Aqua Tail, and I'm going to stay in, and I'm going to switch so that I can guarantee myself to get to the Aqua Tail later. This is not like a bad manners play or anything. It's if they got to that Body Slam and KO'd my Seel first, then I would not. It would be very hard pressed for me to win that fight. But this was just a safer play. So we're gonna see just a 3 out of 5 there. All in all, pretty decent set, I would say, from Tackle Bronzor. I had a lot more positive sets, but I really didn't want to make this video too long just because. Just the nature of Little Cup is so many if you're running Bronzor like the scumbag I am running Bronzor. Bronzor versus Bronzor mirror match is probably the most boring thing in the world to watch. So yeah, I wanted to keep this video short just because of that. We'll hopefully have some way more thrilling videos for Kanto Cup and Little Cup. Those metas are shaping out to be pretty interesting, at least not that dominated by really slow, boring Pokemon. So I'm excited to see what can come out of those. I'm still really working on trying to get some Pokemon for Catch Cup, but for Kanto Cup is first, and there's a lot of teams that I'm excited to show. So yeah, if you guys like this kind of video, as usual, hit that subscribe button. I'll link my Patreon, my Discord in the comments, and Twitter, I guess, so you can follow me there for updates on whatever I'm doing. And I'd like to also get out a advanced mechanics video in the future here, or another advanced strategies one soon. I've got a couple ideas that I've been working on, but they do take quite a bit of time to do all the simulation battles and put together. So and as always, guys, thanks for watching.